Go now. Okay. All right. You ready to go?
We're ready. Let's go.
Let's go.
This is big.
Welcome to the Best Half Show. I'm Mark Organ. I'm joined with Roman Bodertuck. We're all about the big idea, maybe the biggest idea of all. The second half of your life can be 10 times better than the first. We present ideas that can be controversial. We use first principles thinking. This is stuff that you're not going to hear in the mainstream media. And today, I mean, there is breaking news all over the place. We've had the presidential candidate from Republicans, Donald Trump, with an assassination attempt. There's all kinds of stuff going on right now, in fact, as we're speaking. So it's going to be maybe a little more controversial than usual, but it's a very important episode. There are a lot of things going on that are going to really can massively impact your life. We've got to get ready.
Today's show will be controversial. It's a live show. It's the first time we've ever done it live on YouTube, live on LinkedIn. We're doing it for a reason because we don't know if our video will be taken down. So we want to bring you this information live. It's really, really important. So please share this with your friends, with your family. This could be life-changing for you.
Right. So, I mean, by now, I'm sure everybody who's watching or listening knows that there's been an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. He came literally within a centimeter of losing his life, of having his brainstem completely blown out. And the circumstances are really quite unbelievable. There's always a debate on whether you've got malevolence or you've got incompetence. Often there's a mixture of both. But according to what we've seen, and we can talk about some of the evidence, it's very clear that there have been complicit behavior on behalf of the Secret Service, who are supposed to protect Donald Trump, and also the local police. So we could talk about some of that evidence, and some is actually breaking right now in terms of very clear evidence that very much like John F. Kennedy, where his own Secret Service and the CIA and others are responsible for his murder. We're seeing some of those details today.
This is really important because for some of you think that this doesn't affect us. We were literally seconds away from a civil war breaking out. If the bullet had hit Donald Trump's head and he was assassinated, literally within seconds, within minutes, civil war would have broken out in the United States. This has tremendous impact. And if they try this again, which they most likely will, we need to be prepared for this. That's how close we were.
Yeah. Now, I would say that probably the road to civil war. I mean, civil war is a big word. I mean, that what you know, when you think of civil war, you think about an armed insurrection that would happen immediately. I don't think that would happen right away.
So you think about January 6th, for example.
But I think the road to there, because what would happen if he was killed, then the Republicans have no presidential candidate at that time, right? There's no vice president that's been picked. There would have to be another convention. They would have to try to go pick someone. And at the same time, you've got chaos on the Democratic side as well.
Right.
So the commentary I saw is that you might likely have a postponed election.
Correct. And that's what people have been predicting for a long time.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I think we said it in our first couple of episodes, right? That, and you know, and we could talk a little bit about conspiracy theories. You know, Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson had quite a famous exchange, which was ridiculed by the mainstream media, basically saying we're on the road to assassination. You know, again, ridiculed for being conspiracy theorists. But what conspiracy theories have not come true over the last 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, I challenge you to think about that. All the conspiracy theories that you've heard the last few years since COVID, how many have not come true? Let's just think about that for a moment.
Yeah. And so that's really an alternate way of looking at the world. So I think sort of maybe the standard way that people are looking at the world, and especially people who are, you know, on the center and in the left. And I know lots of these people are great friends of mine in many cases. And they'll often say things like, how can that possibly happen? The media would uncover it. Someone would leak it. You know, and therefore we would know about, for example, the medicine that and all the challenges with the medicine that
we were jabbed.
That we may or may not have been jabbed with.
Yes.
You know, if it really was that bad, we would know about it. Not all the media is compromised and whatnot. That's not possible. But the truth is that really is I believe, what's going on is that the people who we think are in control, and I think we've really seen that with Joe Biden, right? So people who are paying attention
Right.
back in the last election know that he was demented back then. He's more demented now.
Right.
But he was demented back then, and the media was covering for him.
Right.
And anybody who's paying attention would see there's nobody going to his rallies. They would see that he was stumbling around. They would see that he was slurring his words. They see that his mind wasn't all there, And but they said, well, but no one's going to his rallies because of COVID. Well, then why does Donald Trump have standing room only places? Is it just because Republicans really think that differently? Like, no, if you're really paying attention, you know that the media was covering and lying for him back then. And now that is, open for the world to see.
And Mark, let's just talk about that last election where people says, oh, it's conspiracy theory that, that election was rigged. For those of you that remember President Obama, and I lived in the US at the time when President Obama won, he was an absolute hero. That was the most incredible, epic election of all time. The amount of votes he got was a record. Yeah. But mysteriously, what happened in the last election, Mark? Give us the numbers on how many mysteriously voted for Biden.
81 million. He was the most popular president of all time. This is somebody who couldn't even draw, a quorum to his events. Like literally 12 people could not draw to many of these things. He campaigned from his basement.
Right.
And the reason why he campaigned from his basement is he is able to win. He even said on live TV that we have the best campaign cheating apparatus in the world. He said that on live TV. And of course, the media would cover for him and say, oh, that's just Uncle Joe. He's just doing his thing. But yeah, that's what happens when people have Alzheimer's. Sometimes they say the truth.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, it's amazing. I watched a video of the campaign cheating in Fulton County in Atlanta. And it's all there on video. You see them swapping out the votes and whatever. It's like, do people even believe their eyes? It's unbelievable.
So mysteriously, the most popular presidential election of all time, President Obama, but somehow Joe Biden, which was never been popular, wins by, it's an extra 20 million votes.
Right.
Like, incredible.
And I mean, I was watching, and it's interesting. So I have a good friend of mine who's very much on the left. And both of us were essentially watching on Twitter. I mean, we were texting back and forth. And he texted to me and he said, looks like Trump is going to win. Looks like your favorite candidate is going to win. And I said, no, he won't. I said, just wait till tomorrow morning.
Yeah, they won't allow it.
They won't allow it. And it's true. You see the lines go and cross like that. Yes. All these mail-in votes came in.
Yes.
In fact, even the algorithm was figured out. So somebody deduced exactly how this worked, like how they managed to falsify the voting. And it doesn't matter. I mean, most people just think it is a crazy thing for anybody to believe that an election in the United States was rigged, even though there's so much evidence for how it happened.
But no one will believe it. And when you talk about it, your videos get deleted. All of a sudden, this is what happens. So that was the past. But let's talk about what happened recently. So, and again, I have a deep, I guess, affinity to Donald Trump and his family because he was my biggest client for many years. And I do love the family. They're incredible human beings, incredible people, and I have tremendous respect. And there aren't too many billionaires that I know that would do what he's doing. I mean, he could have an incredible retirement, incredible life, and the stuff that he's doing is unbelievable. But think about, what did they try to do to Donald Trump last 4 years? After they stole the election, they did everything they could to discredit him. Every possible thing they could do, a character assassination. Mm-hmm. It didn't work. Then they tried to drain his bank accounts by launching dozens of these lawsuits all over the world. All of a sudden, they have fines for billions of dollars to drain his bank account. That didn't work. The only assassination.
Then criminal.
Right.
They want to throw him in jail.
Right.
And very nearly did that if the Supreme Court didn't go and step in.
Correct. So when you try to do a character assassination, it doesn't work. You try to drain their bank accounts, it doesn't work. You try to do all the criminal things, it doesn't work. What's left? It's assassination.
And that's exactly what Tucker Carlson said. He's like, we're on the road to assassination because that's the only thing that's left. And you see that with other people. Andrew Tate said the same thing. The same thing happened to him, right? He's going through all that steps.
Yes.
It's why he said on live TV, he's like, I am not suicidal.
Right. Yeah.
If I'm dead, it's by someone else's
Even
hand.
Jordan Peterson, like people that are thought leaders, or Tucker Carlson thinks he has a big threat to be killed, and Alex Jones. So
and I would say Elon Musk should
yes,
probably beef up his security detail.
yeah, and he
Yeah.
says it a lot. He goes, "I'm not suicidal." But let's just talk about when this happened. So Eric Prince is somebody that we both respect, largest private security firm in the world.
And Blackwater, yeah,
Blackwater.
he was CEO of Blackwater. Blackwater's no more, but he's still in the business.
So Eric studied the videos from the assassination attempt, and what were the conclusions?
Yeah, I mean, the conclusion is that this is either incompetence at the grossest scale or is being complicit, and really it is being complicit. So I think what they've done. I mean, you have a rooftop that's 150 meters from where Donald Trump was speaking, and nobody thought to secure it with a perfect vantage point. There was a ladder that was there
recently installed.
that was not there before.
Yeah,
I mean, it was so obvious. And then the shooter wasn't taken out until he got his shots off and then was killed.
And the shooter came in with a fully exposed rifle, 150 meters from the president, came up, people saw him, and they were letting authorities know there's a guy with a rifle going up on the roof. They knew 5 minutes for the shots, nothing happened.
Right.
Incredible.
Incredible. So it is possible that this is just utter gross incompetence by the Secret Service and everyone else that's supposed to be protecting Donald Trump. But what it feels more to me, and I think what Mr. Prince kind of alluded to, it's almost like weaponized incompetence, right? I might have heard that phrase these days. So were they complicit? Most likely, but they made it look like they're a bunch of bumbling fools. And you can even see that with some of these Secret Service people, some clearly from DEI.
Was it Amy Schumer? No.
You got these 5'2" kind of overweight, Melissa McCarthy looking people trying to protect a 6'2" guy. Is almost, if there's one positive thing that's come out of this, is hopefully a real spotlight on DEI and saying, hey, having your goal of having 30% females shouldn't be your number one goal. Your number one goal should be to protect the president of the United States.
Right.
But there was so much incompetence. Like I even saw once where his MAGA hat fell down, and one of the Secret Service agents, she stooped down to pick up his hat, leaving his whole body exposed. Like the hat is more important than him. So like utter ridiculous things that that have happened. But it's more likely that this is complicit behavior. I mean, just like what happened with JFK. The challenge now is that, wow, I mean, now you've got a guy who literally is a living martyr. I mean, it was actually really inspiring. And actually, even people, I saw accounts from people on the left saying, holy shit, like this guy is a lion, right? Here he is stand up, bleeding, fist in the air, saying, fight, fight, fight. Right. They've now created a living martyr. He is absolutely unstoppable. I mean, he was going to win likely, I think, in a landslide. That'll be the most
iconic photo in our lifetime. Like that's like a Statue of Liberty kind of thing. Like you could just see like on Mount Rushmore, like what they're going to build for him.
For sure.
Like they made him a hero.
And that's a big problem. If you believe, and I think as we believe, that the world is not what it seems.
Right.
The media is not honest. The market is not honest. Right. The way the politics.
The first few minutes when he was shot, CNN had reported, and what they said. Did you remember this?
Yeah.
They literally said Donald Trump fell off the podium.
Yeah.
It was like he fell off the podium.
Yeah. Loud noises caused a stoppage in the
CNN
in the event. Yeah. I saw the most hilarious headline in the Babylon Bee, which is clumsy Trump stumbles onto a bullet. And the reason why that was so funny was that where they're making fun of is the media, right? Where the literally that's something like the media kind of said something like that. So yeah, the media is not honest. The market that we think is not honest. The pharmaceutical industry is not honest. The doctors are prescribing things that are killing us. The food companies are producing things that are supposed to be healthy but are actually killing people. There is, the government is not what it seems. You think that President Biden's in control? He's not. You think that Prime Minister Trudeau is in control? He's not. There's a power behind the throne.
Yeah, and let's talk about who that power is, because a lot of us believe that the president or prime ministers are in control, and they're not. If you follow the money, it's very, very clear. So the military industrial complex, which are the big military contractors in America, if you just look at the money that they spend in terms of political lobbying, political donations, and if you look at all of the government officials, all the military officials that end up retiring for working for those firms, you follow them. I use the real powers. Think about Big Pharma, 2020, 2021, the biggest lobbyist in America. And what happened when Big Pharma became the biggest lobbyist? Even actually did more than the military complex. What happened? All of a sudden, we were forced to take a particular medication.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, this is going on for a long time. So I remember reading a monograph from a guy named Smedley Butler, who at one point was the most decorated, I guess, military officer in U.S. history, at least at the time, and maybe even today. And he wrote an article called, first it was a speech called "War is a Racket," and he did this in 1931. So even 100 years ago, a number of these wars that were going on were actually from what was then the military-industrial complex. These are arms manufacturers and others. Like, war is very profitable, not just for people who make armaments. It's profitable for people who make food. It's profitable for banks, right? So there's money to be made, and I think this is what a conspiracy theorist would say. If war is profitable, there'll be more war. If injecting people with drugs or causing pestilence or causing plagues is profitable, there'll be more of that.
So let's talk about why they need to remove Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the only sitting president of our lifetime that did not want to go to war, that didn't start a war. And he's made it very clear he wants to negotiate and end all the current wars. So if you're the military industrial complex and you've got $1 trillion on the line and you've got a president that says we are going to end all these wars, you're out of business. Like, you've literally stopped the spending. So let's talk about why we don't think this will be the last attempt on Donald Trump's life.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, and this is what Tucker Carlson said. Alex Jones and I agree. They just cannot let this guy win. I think they'll do whatever they have to do. I mean, if they have to explode a nuclear bomb in New York City, they may do that.
Or if this suddenly crashes,
or you know, stock market crash or whatever, or a cyber attack, which is something that, you know, the World Economic Forum has been warning about for like its last 3 years, is that there will be a cyber attack. It will take out the banks.
Yes.
And it's amazing how many of the things that the World Economic Forum have warned that might happen that have actually happened, especially with respect to, you know, the what we've been through with COVID and whatnot.
And Mark, just for those of you that are in Canada, the RCMP had a secret report talking about basically civil unrest in Canada and what can happen there, how they're preparing for it. So what we're saying today is this is not just about an assassination attempt. We're talking about it will most likely happen again.
Yeah.
And if they are successful in taking out Donald Trump, this will be chaotic beyond anything we can imagine. And we, as individuals, as people that are responsible for our families, we need to be prepared. So let's just talk about that.
Yeah. Even before that, I mean, one of the things I think that that Alex Jones did a good job, and he's a really interesting character. He's really reviled by, I guess, a lot of people in the mainstream, and he can seem a little crazy sometimes.
Yes.
And he said some things about the Sandy Hook thing that bankrupted him and whatnot. So with a number of these people who are really good at seeing the future, like Alex Jones, I think is one of the best lateral thinkers I've seen. Like connectors, he's a great connector of dots.
Yes.
And he's been able to sort of see in the future, basically because he's had a different lens on the world as most people. Like his lens on the world is you've got this shadowy sort of super government that is hard to tell. That's even above the military industrial complex. It really goes into central banks. It goes into that. I mean, central banks, remember, they can print money out of nothing. It's the most profitable business in the world.
Right.
So that's been his lens on the world. And using that lens, he's made a number of predictions. And a lot of those predictions have actually come true.
Like he called 9/11 like perfectly. Before it ever happened. He's made a lot of incredible
9/11, he's exposed Bohemian Grove, like so many things that, you know, and I think he's been, you know, very much reviled for it. I mean, what he's shown a light on is even if they don't kill Donald Trump, actually the bigger risk is an attempted assassination of Joe Biden, which can then be used as a false flag against people on the right and giving an opportunity to go lock up a whole lot of people on the right. And false flags have been part of the history of the world for a long time. I mean, that's like the Reichstag fire, right? The Nazis did that in order to provide cover and allow for Kristallnacht to happen. The Lusitania, which is what started, the sinking of Lusitania is what started World War I. That was that was essentially like a false flag. They did that on purpose. They wanted it to sink
Right.
because they wanted to get into the war. This is the military-industrial complex.
Yes. Yes.
Even Pearl Harbor, there's quite a bit of scholarship that suggests that Truman wanted that to happen. They wanted to have this thing to happen because, again, it's profitable. They wanted to bring the United States into the war.
And more recently, Mark, there's some theories about what happened in October in Israel, and how is it possible that all of a sudden this happened? You know, you've got the most protected country in the world, and how'd that happen?
There's absolutely. If a rabbit ran across that line, I mean, it would be automatically vaporized.
Right.
You know, how did a bunch of yahoos on gliders, get over that thing? It's mighty.
And the response
suspicious.
time on that was just ridiculous. So there's a lot of theories.
It's mighty suspicious.
And what has that created? A massive war. A massive war.
Right.
It's incredible.
And most importantly, bringing Iran potentially into the war. So, the people who may be really running things, they've had it in for Iran for decades, right?
Yes.
And Russia as well, and a number of these pariah countries. Russia's full of natural resources that are valued, and then Iran again. So Iran is not on the global rules-based system. They don't have a central bank like everyone else. They're not controllable like anyone else. Same thing. I mean, the same thing would happen with Iraq, with Libya. So you notice a lot of these places, their leaders killed. Right.
And recently, what happened with the president of Iran? Just mysteriously,
So I think the reason why this is such a problem, right? Again, even if Trump manages to not get assassinated,
if he survives,
I think we're looking potentially at a lot of chaos because they cannot allow him to win. And that does have an effect on all of us. And I don't want to be a downer here.
We just have to be prepared.
But yes. And so what does that preparation look like? A few things. I've always been a believer in having, 2-3 weeks of food and water and whatever on hand, just in case there's a stoppage. Because that is one of the things, again, if there is this Greece cyber attack and, the ATMs go down for a while, and remember, we've got more than just this election going on. You also have a couple of major wars. You got this war in Ukraine and Russia, where already you have people talking about Russia having cyber attack, capabilities, and potentially, Taiwan and China. And there's a number of other flashpoints around the world. You've got the US dollar that is, increasingly being marginalized, where Saudi Arabia is now accepting payment and not in US dollars for their oil. So you've got the US dollar that's being marginalized. There's like all kinds of what are called catalysts for a bank holiday that might happen. So having some extra cash on hand, having the ability to provide for your family for a while is a good idea. Community is a big one.
It's a huge one.
And I mean, that's probably maybe one of the most important things is to interact with people who might believe some of the same things and maybe ahead of the curve compared to where you are. Like, I think where we are, I think we're ahead of the curve, and even we associate with people who have a deeper understanding. And we're creating a community here, right? We're right now just called the Best Half Club that we're going to be launching, and we'd love for people to go and join. And it's a chance for all of us to put our heads together
and help each other. So this is a community of people that are awake, that are questioning, that are first principles thinkers, that aren't believing what the propaganda media is telling us. Because most of what we've been told our whole lives isn't true. Everything we were taught about health just isn't true. Everything we were taught about a lot of things that our parents told us, and our parents love us. They didn't mean to lie to us. Our grandparents didn't mean to lie to us. But these are untruths. That's why you got 70% obesity rates, the highest cancer rates in history, highest diabetes rates in history. The number one cause of death for men under 40, suicide. More people are on antidepressants than any drug in history combined. You've got more people addicted to alcohol anytime in history, more people addicted to drugs. I mean, this is a reason all of this happened. So we've got to think beyond the headlines and actually do our own research.
Yeah, you really have to do your own research. And yeah, I mean, I remember, and really going a lot deeper than most people would. I remember there was this one sort of famous scientific paper it's called the Danish mass study. And what was so interesting is that the data showed clearly that masks don't work. And anybody with some common sense would know the virus with this paper masks that have got holes this big and the viruses could easily go inside. I mean, it's kind of common sense. They don't work. And this study showed very clearly, not that only do they not work, they actually cause a lot of problems. A lot of these people, they get pneumonia and other problems from these masks. But the abstract and the conclusions say masks work. The data says it doesn't work.
Right.
Most people just don't read.
They just read the
article. They just read
yeah.
exactly. They just read the headlines, and they can be deceived.
So on that point, I had this experience this weekend. I have a friend of mine. His fiance is pregnant, and I said, make sure you guys don't drink, Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi. Yeah. It can cause autism. And he's like, Roman, send me the peer-reviewed study. So the challenge with peer-reviewed studies, we've talked about this before, is peer-reviewed studies are not what you think they are. So somebody does the data. It's usually funded by the big pharma. Only big pharma has access to the data. So think about this. So big pharma says, we want to prove this theory. So big pharma owns the data. The only people that are ever allowed to see the data are the big pharma. It's not even shared to people that are peer reviewing the study. As a matter of fact, the only time you have access to it is if you take them to court and you get a subpoena, like RFK has done, because he's the only person that sued all these big pharma companies over the years. And then when you see the data, that's the truth comes out. But a lot of these studies are just bogus and they're not peer reviewed. It's like me, Mark, writing a book report about a book, and then you don't read the book. You read my book report and you're giving me your opinion on my book report, but you never read the book. You never allowed to see the book. It's not allowed. So when you think about these peer reviewed studies, a lot of this is just nonsense. These are just marketing tools that big pharma uses. I mean, I believed a lot of them, but one of them was on red wine. Yeah, red wine's good for us. So that was my excuse for drinking red wine. It was complete bullshit. But again, I was told my whole life that this toxic was going to be good for me. It's just a lie. So we've all been subject to these lies.
Yeah, it's true. And one thing that is amazing, that is a truly like a gift from God, is X, is formerly known as Twitter. I mean, I think everybody in the world owes Elon Musk a great debt for buying that thing.
Absolutely.
Because it's all there. All the information is out there. Like I remember my doctor said, well, your LDL cholesterol is high. You should go on statin drugs.
Right.
And I have heard before that if you have neurodegenerative disease in your family, you should really not take it because your nerves are coated with myelin, and myelin is mostly made of cholesterol. So I went on X, started to do some research, and oh my God, I mean, statins may be the greatest medical scam in history, including even bigger than the medicine.
Yeah, you're for life.
But not just that, it causes so many problems.
Yes.
Everything from erectile dysfunction to diabetes to blah, blah, blah. So many things. Basically a huge moneymaker for big pharma for life.
Right.
So I got my parents off of this stuff. The best thing you can do for your cardiovascular health is get lean.
Right.
That's it. Just get lean. If you're a man, get sub 15% body fat. If you really want to take some things to help you, take baby aspirin or take nattokinase. It's way better than a drug that actually takes cholesterol and shuttles it into cells and blows it up. It's actually what
But Mark,
what
you
happens.
had to do
But
your own research. Like
yeah,
you had to go. Because if you just went to your doctor, like, oh, take these meds.
And it's all out there. And yes, you also have like wackos too.
Sure.
And you have to go and
Sort
see,
through it.
okay, is this person a wacko? But it's all out there. Like the scientific data is all out there. And generally, we should be suspicious.
We should be. And I think X is an incredible platform. There's some AI tools that I use. And actually, if you give it a topic, it'll research all the peer-reviewed studies and actually see which ones are credible.
Wow.
And it'll give you, it's called Consensus, consensus.ai.
Yeah.
So instead of me having to read, thousands of pages of all these peer and figure out which ones are credible now, it does that for me. So the data's there, but if you are just scrolling on Instagram or TikTok and you're making life or death decisions about your health, your family, I mean, give your head a shake. I mean, we need to really do our own due diligence on these things.
Yeah. Now, on an uplifting note, right? I mean, they say that the Chinese characters for crisis has both trouble and opportunity in it.
Right.
I don't know if that's actually true, but it certainly sounds good, and it really is true. Like if you can make you can have a lot of great success if there's challenges around. So I do think that if you're in phenomenal physical, mental, emotional shape, if you're surrounded by friends, if you've got close relationships with your family, You've got your community around you. You have a plan B so that if there is a discontinuity, that you're not going to perish. Like, you have some resilience, right? You've built up your resilience. I think it's actually a great opportunity.
And let's talk about that, Mark. So the first thing we did in our show is we talked about health, because if you don't have health and you're not in the best shape of your life, it's very tough to be resilient. If you didn't have a good night's sleep and you don't feel energetic, it's really tough to deal with chaos. It's deal with stress. We are about to, and we've already started a journey of the most chaotic time in human history. So if you haven't got your sleep and you're not physically strong and mentally strong, you're going to have a really hard time dealing with all this nonsense. Like, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah. So hopefully there's something, uplifting, and things those are all things that you can do. You can get healthier. You can build your community. You can have your plan B, both locally and globally. And you could come out of what is, I think, almost certainly going to be a period of transition. And you can come out the other side potentially a lot stronger, especially relative to others.
I also think it strengthens our faith. No matter what faith you have, this is a time to believe in something real. And sometimes this brings people to the synagogues and brings people to churches, or whatever faith you believe. But this is a time, we're going through biblical times. I mean, this is some pretty scary times, but getting yourself physically, mentally strong, and really tight relationships with your family and friends is super important. Never been more important.
Right.
So Mark, as a parting note, what advice do we give to people that are watching all this chaos? What would you say is a final word?
Well, I think first thing, you should like and subscribe to the Best Half Show.
That's great.
Yeah, and it feeds the algorithm. Not only does it help us out to reach more people with our message, but it also helps you with a better feed with more like-minded people, so that you can learn more.
That's great advice. I mean, we can take charge of our lives because everyone's algorithm is different. For example, if you're with a partner and you actually see the same content, what YouTube and Instagram or TikTok, they could even change the comments. So I'll see certain comments, my partner can see different comments. Like, it's crazy, these algorithms. But by subscribing to the Best Half Show, you're going to get great content. You're programming the algorithm for, I want the truth. I want some first principles thinkers. I want some great content. I don't want the nonsense that's a lot. There's a lot of it out there. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is fast moving. I'm excited to see what's going to happen over the next few days. And this is a time for us to be on our toes. I'm not taking any crazy trips for a little while. I really want to see how this whole thing shakes out.
And from an investment perspective, we've seen our gold investments and our Bitcoin investments do very well. In turbulent times, they tend to do fairly well.
Yeah. True.
Have a great summer, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Best Half Show.